I am 106 years old, and I want to tell you something that I have never told anyone outside of my family, not because I was ashamed, well, maybe a little, but because for the longest time I didn't even fully understand what had happened to us, to me, to the life I thought we had built together. My husband Harold passed on a Tuesday morning in October. We had been married for 51 years. 51 years of Sunday breakfasts and arguing over the thermostat and raising 3 children and burying one of them before his time. 51 years of a man I thought I knew down to the very marrow of his bones. And then he was gone. And the papers came, and the phone calls started, and I sat at our kitchen table, the same table where we had eaten 10,000 meals together, and I realized with a cold, sinking feeling that I had absolutely no idea what our financial life actually looked like. None. Not a single clear picture. Harold had always handled the money. That was just how it was done back then. I am not making excuses for it. I am simply telling you the truth of how our generation lived. The husband worked, the husband paid the bills, the husband made the decisions, and the wife trusted. And I trusted Harold with everything I had. What I found in those weeks after he died, and in the months and years that followed, were 3 financial decisions he had made quietly, without ever sitting me down and explaining what he had done or why. 3 decisions that shaped the rest of my life in ways I could never have predicted when I was standing at that kitchen table, still wearing the dress I had worn to his funeral. I am telling you this today because I have watched too many women, and men too, walk right into the same wall I hit. And if I can save even one of you from the kind of confusion and heartache and financial scrambling I went through after Harold died, then these 106 years have been good for something beyond just being a story someone tells at Thanksgiving. Stay with me. This matters. And if nobody has told you to subscribe to this channel yet, let me be the one to do it. I am 106 years old, and I have learned that the people who teach you something real deserve your attention. Hit that subscribe button and stick around, because what I am about to share took me decades to fully understand, and I am going to give it to you in the next few minutes for free. Harold was a good man. I want you to understand that before I say another word. He was not deceitful. He was not gambling our money away or hiding a second family somewhere. He was a hard-working, proud, deeply well-intentioned man who made decisions the way most men of his era made them, alone, quietly, and with the unshakable confidence that he knew best. That confidence was not malice, but it cost me dearly all the same. The first thing I found was a life insurance policy, or rather, I found the absence of one. Not entirely. Harold did have a small policy, a modest thing he had taken out in his 40s that he had never updated, never increased, never revisited. The death benefit was a number that would have been meaningful in 1971. By the time Harold passed, that number barely covered 3 months of our household expenses. Now I want you to sit with that for a moment. 51 years of marriage, a man who worked hard his entire life, and the life insurance he left behind was a relic from 3 decades before he died, sized for a world that no longer existed. When the insurance agent sat across from me at that kitchen table and told me what the payout would be, I nodded politely the way I had been raised to do. And then after he left, I went into the bathroom and I sat on the edge of the tub and I thought, how is this possible? How did we never talk about this? The answer, of course, is that we never talked about it because Harold assumed it was fine and I assumed Harold had handled it. Two people assuming and nobody actually checking. Here is what I learned. Too late for it to help me, but not too late for it to help you. Life insurance is not something you buy once in your 40s and then forget about. It is a living document of your financial life. It needs to grow with you. It needs to be reviewed when your income changes, when your children are grown, when you pay off your mortgage, when your expenses shift. It needs to reflect the actual life you are living, not the life you were living 30 years ago. The number Harold left me was not enough to be comfortable. It was enough to survive on if I was careful, if I gave up things, if I leaned hard on my children when I hated asking them for anything. And that was the beginning of my education in what it feels like to be financially dependent on the goodwill of people who love you. Pride is a complicated thing when you are 72 years old and you need your daughter to help you with the electric bill. But the insurance was only the first thing, and in some ways it was the most straightforward of the three surprises Harold left me. The second one took me longer to find, and when I found it, I had to call my son-in-law to explain to me what it even meant, because the language of it was so foreign to me that I might as well have been reading a letter written in a language I had never studied. Retirement accounts. That is the second chapter of this story. And if you are planning for your own retirement, or if you are married to someone who handles the finances the way Harold handled ours, I need you to pay very close attention to what I am about to tell you, because this one is subtle in a way that the insurance policy was not. Harold had a pension. He had worked for the same company for 34 years, and he had a pension. And when we were in our late 50s and people would ask about retirement, Harold would tap the table with one finger and say, "We've got the pension. We're fine." And I believed him. Of course I believed him. He said it with such certainty. What Harold had not told me, what Harold may not have fully understood himself, though I will never know, was that he had chosen a specific payout option on that pension. There are different ways to take a pension when you retire. You can take a higher monthly payment during your own lifetime, and when you die, the payments stop. Or you can take a lower monthly payment, but choose what is called a survivor benefit, which means that when you die, your spouse continues to receive a portion of the payments for the rest of their life. Harold chose the higher payment, the one with no survivor benefit. I do not know why. I have thought about it for over 30 years, and I still do not know. Maybe he assumed he would outlive me. Most husbands do, statistically, though Harold was not much for statistics. Maybe he thought the difference in the monthly amount was too significant to pass up. Maybe he never thought about it at all, and just checked the box that gave us the bigger number without reading what happened in the column underneath. When Harold died, the pension stopped. Completely. The day after his funeral, that income was gone. I want you to understand what that means in practical terms. Harold and I had built our retirement budget around that pension check. Our Social Security was modest. Our savings were not deep. and now the largest single piece of our retirement income had simply evaporated, and I had not known it would happen until it already had. My son-in-law is a patient man. He is the one who sat with me at that kitchen table, always that kitchen table, the witness to so much of my real life, and explained what a survivor benefit was. He explained it gently. He was very kind about it. But there was nothing kind about the situation itself. If you are married and your spouse has a pension, I am asking you right now to find out which payout option they have chosen. Not eventually, not next month. Now. This week. Sit down together and look at the paperwork and understand what will happen to your income when one of you is gone. Because the whole point of retirement planning is not just to be comfortable while you are both alive. It is to make sure that whoever is left behind does not have to rebuild their financial life from near zero in their 70s. The pension decision Harold made was not reversible once he made it, and I paid for that irreversibility every single month for the rest of my life. But here is the thing about being 106 years old. You accumulate enough heartache and enough resilience that you start to hold both at the same time. I was devastated by what I found, and I also kept going. I kept going because what else do? You adapt, you learn, you make the best of what is in front of you. But I will tell you honestly, I would have made better choices for myself in those years after Harold died if I had not been starting from a place of such shock and such scrambling. The third decision Harold made is perhaps the one I find hardest to talk about, even now. Because this one is not about insurance paperwork or pension boxes. This one is about something more personal. Something that gets right to the heart of what it means to trust another person with your future. Harold had debt. He had debt that I did not know about, taken on quietly in the last years of his life, when his health was beginning to decline, and he was too proud to talk about the way things were shifting for us financially. It was not a catastrophic sum. I want to be clear about that. We are not talking about a second mortgage or gambling debts or anything that dramatic. What Harold had was a collection of smaller debts, a home equity line he had opened without mentioning it to me, a credit card he had used for medical costs that he had been paying down slowly and quietly for 2 years before he died, and a loan he had taken from his brother that his brother was gracious enough to eventually forgive, though that graciousness cost Harold's memory a great deal of dignity in my eyes. The total was manageable. I need you to understand that I am not telling you we were ruined, but the total was enough that when I added it to the lost pension and the inadequate insurance, it tilted everything just far enough that I spent the better part of a decade genuinely uncertain whether I would be all right. A decade of uncertainty at 72. When what you want, what you have earned, is a measure of peace. The debt was not the money, the debt was the secret. That is what I want you to carry out of this part of the story. Harold kept these things from me because he was embarrassed, because he had always been the one who managed our finances, and he felt that admitting difficulty was admitting failure, and Harold could not bear to fail in front of the woman he loved. I understand that. I genuinely do. After decades of reflection, I understand the pride and the protection he thought he was offering me by carrying these things alone. But here is the truth that outlasted Harold's intentions. His silence was not protection. His silence was a wall between us that I only discovered existed when I had to walk through it alone after he was gone, without a map. Debt in a marriage is not just a financial fact. It is a conversation that needs to happen. If you or your spouse is carrying something, a line of credit you opened, a loan you are servicing, a card with a balance that has been quietly growing, that conversation needs to happen while you are both sitting at your kitchen table, both alive, both able to plan together. Because here is what I know at 106 that I did not know at 72. Money kept secret between spouses does not stay in the money world. It bleeds. It bleeds into trust. It bleeds into grief. It bleeds into the story you tell yourself about the person you loved, and that story becomes more complicated when they are gone and cannot explain themselves. Harold cannot tell me why he made those 3 decisions. He cannot sit across from me and help me understand his reasoning. He cannot say, "I'm sorry, I should have told you." That conversation will never happen, and I have had to make peace with that, and I have, more or less. But the peace cost me something, and I want to be honest about that. The 3 decisions Harold made were not born of cruelty. They were born of pride and silence and the deeply human tendency to assume that everything will work out before you have actually made sure that it will. They were mistakes that millions of people are making right now, today, in their marriages and in their retirement planning, not because they are bad people, but because they have not yet had the conversation that needs to happen. So let me be the conversation. If your life insurance policy has not been reviewed in more than 5 years, review it. If you do not know which payout option your spouse has chosen on their pension or retirement account, find out. If there are debts in your household that only one of you knows about, change that. This week, today if you can. These are not complicated instructions. They do not require a financial advisor, though a good one can certainly help. They require one thing, and that one thing is the willingness to sit down together and talk honestly about where you are and what you have, and what happens if one of you is not here anymore. I have been a widow for more than 30 years. I have watched my children grow old. I have buried friends and outlasted everyone I started this life alongside. And in all of those years, the single most consistent piece of advice I have found myself giving to younger people, and at my age, almost everyone is younger, is this: do not leave the hard conversation for later. Later has a way of becoming never, and never has a way of becoming the thing you discover at the kitchen table after the funeral. Harold loved me. I have never doubted that for a single day, but love without honesty leaves the people you love unprotected. And I would rather have had 30 years of difficult money conversations with Harold than 30 years of managing on my own after he was gone. I am 106 years old. I have made my peace. I have lived my life fully and richly, and with more gratitude than I can hold in words. But I am telling you this story because the time you have right now, the time you are spending watching this video while the person you love is still alive and still sitting somewhere in your house, is the most valuable financial asset you have. Use it. Talk to each other. Check the paperwork. Know what you have. And if this story meant something to you, If something I said today is going to send you to a filing cabinet or a dinner table or a serious conversation you have been putting off, I want to ask you kindly to subscribe to this channel, because the people here have made it their business to tell the truth about money and retirement in plain language, and that kind of honesty deserves your time. I have lived 106 years. I know what deserves your time. Take care of each other. That is all. That is everything.